Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Pedovich here, going into the weekend, and weather locally is beautiful in the Carolinas. We've got high pressure in control, temperatures slowly warming in the afternoon, low humidity, and no rain in sight. But we do have a tropical system in the Atlantic that, as always, and for good reason, people always get a little nervous when they start seeing tropical systems out there. So let's talk a little bit about Tropical Storm Fiona. First things first, it is still way out there. I'm getting a lot of people concerned about this already. And why I always want you to watch systems out there and pay attention. This is still a long ways from being any issue for the Carolinas, if at all. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those scenarios in my vlog today, because the weather for us is actually just going to be kind of boring in the Carolinas. We have nothing to worry about. So let's show you where the system is. I will turn on the track, and we'll show you the official forecast, which we'll get another one here coming up at 11 o'clock. But you can see the official track takes the storm. Very weak, by the way. Shear is tearing it up across Hispaniola, which will tear it up as well. So there's a lot of questions about how strong this will be once it emerges from the Big Island there. And then going into early to mid next week, the storm will be there. So it's still 5-6 days away from even emerging out of the Caribbean and being near the southern Bahamas. So that's a long time away. Now, will it affect the Carolinas? There's still some uncertainty here. The trend has been for this to recurve, but it could be close enough that it passes between the Carolinas and Bermuda, and we can't totally rule out some impacts in the Carolinas just yet. So let's focus on the storm a little bit closer. I'm going to turn off the track real quick, and we'll go in close. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the high-resolution stuff here. We'll get really close in. And you can see as we go in closer, all the thunderstorms are here, but the center is actually exposed. We call this naked. It's not anything inappropriate. It's just what we call when the storm has the thunderstorm or convection away from the center. So the center is here, but all the storms are here. That means wind shear is pushing those storms or shearing them off the top and pushing them off to the east. In fact, the hurricane hunters are out there right now, and you can see they found that the center is actually over in here, and there's a little bit of a wiggle to the northwest. So they're going to go up here and crisscross back down here shortly, and we'll see where it ends up. But the center is actually exposed from the center of circulation. So where is this thing going to go long term? Well, a couple things to look at first. We'll look at the intensity forecast, and I'll refresh this to make sure it's up to date. This was the morning runs. You can see very weak for the next 3 or 4 days. By day 5, it might reemerge from Hispaniola and possibly perk up to a category 1 or 2. But certainly in the long range, once it gets away from the wind shear and the big islands, it could become a hurricane. It could even become a hurricane if it stays south of the islands briefly going into the future. What did the guidance say? Well, this was the morning runs. You could see the spaghetti plots, the first couple coming in, all pretty much recurving this off to the north. There's a couple wild cards in here long range. There's Bermuda up there. You can't even see the Carolinas. They're off to the northwest. But you get the idea. Day 5, 6, 7, it's somewhere in this general vicinity. We can look at the spaghetti plots a little bit more in Google Earth here. I'll pop them up real quickly just so we can see all of them. So let me throw them up real quickly, and we'll show all the plots because I think people like to see, everything and displayed at once. So let me throw those up. Come on, we'll pop these up here and see if we can't get everything to pop up at the same time. So let's look at the latest guidance for the system. Let's see if we can get all these to pop up here. Pop them up just for a second. I'm going to turn off those in a minute, but let me pop these up so you can see the hurricane hunters out there right now, kind of checking it out. That's the hurricane hunters. I'm trying to pop up the data here so you can see the actual forecast data. Well, let's go back. I'll show you a different plot of that to give you an easier view of that. And there's the full spaghetti plots. You can see all kind of drifting off to the north. And there's actually the last couple of runs of the GFS and a couple other guidance have now kind of got more on the recurve frame. And I'll show you a couple different versions of this. This is the GFS Ensembles, and I always like looking at more than just one model run. That's what you got to be very careful, just focusing on one single run. And if you look carefully, the cluster or the track guidance is all clustered generally in recurvature. Now, there's a couple rogue ones out here and a few down to the southwest, but the overwhelming majority, it has recurvature. And yesterday there was, I'm going to move my head out of the way, the GFS deterministic, which is the single model run. We don't always look at just the single model run. We tend to look at this black line, and we call it the GFS mean. It's where all of the different variations of the model come together, have a pretty good consensus on recurvature. In fact, the fact that the hurricane hunters have been out there now a couple times means we've got much better sampling of the storm. The models are now using that data, and we've got a pretty good handle on what's happening with this storm. So let me show you real quickly the overall steering currents here with this system. I'm going to show you that that the system, as it recurves, I'll show the European ensembles real quickly. I don't know why it's not uploading. Nothing wants to cooperate with me today. So we'll show you kind of the same thing. This is not the GFS, but the European models showing you the same kind of thing, very consistently moving offshore. Now, again, there's some that have landfall, but again, it's such a small percentage. The overwhelming majority are offshore. So why are they doing this? Well, let's look at the overall pattern. I think this will tell you the story of what's happening. So we've got high pressure to the north right now, which is taking Fiona off to the west. That track to the west, let me actually change the color of my cursor here so it's a little bit easier to see. There we go. Taking it off to the west, and this is kind of a big gear in the atmosphere, you know, this high pressure system spinning clockwise, so it's pushing it off towards the west. There's a little trough here, and there's another big ridge of high pressure here that we're going to be watching that's actually going to bake us with the heat this weekend into early next week. We go through the weekend, we get into early next week. I'm going to pause this late Sunday into Monday morning. You notice the ridge over the United States starts to build. This is what's going to give us our heat. You notice that the ridge in the Atlantic kind of weakens, shifts back here, and there's a passing trough up here. This creates a weakness in between these two ridges, and it's going to want to have a tendency for this storm to get pulled to the north. Now, what happens with this high and this high will be crucial. There's another trough that's going to try to swing down here once it gets past Hispaniola. You can see it right there off the east coast. Right there. So this trough is going to try to pull on it. It's like a magnet. It's going to want to pull it north. And you can see the ridge here starting to build back to the west. You see it kind of coming like this. So this is going to want to steer it like this. And then this is the ridge of high pressure steering it like this. So there's an avenue for this storm to recurve and go up here. Now, where the questions occur is if this trough doesn't influence or pull it up to the north enough, it might get left behind and hang out over the Bahamas. And there are some indications in the ensembles that it kind of slows down and gets stuck there briefly, but it looks like another trough comes down and gives it an opportunity to get picked up. So, you know, looking at these steering currents, I don't see anything that's going to shove it due west because, first of all, this ridge is here. Unless this ridge weakens and moves out, you would need this trough to be weaker and up here, and you would need this high right here to start being more dominant to shove it in to the Carolinas. So there's a lot of things that would have to happen for it to come further west. It could happen. That's something we need to watch. But again, we're talking something about late next week or next weekend, if even that soon. This is Thursday morning here, and it's still only near the Bahamas. So there is a lot of time to watch this. That's really kind of the moral of this update. Nothing to be concerned about right now for sure. It's just something to pay attention to on the coast. Enjoy your weekend because it's not coming our way anytime soon. Next week, maybe have a great weekend. After the weekend, start paying a little bit more attention. And by the middle of next week, we'll have an idea if it's going to be a concern. And even then, we'll have several more days before it even would have any impact on us. And that's a big if. So right now, the tendency, all the guidance, all of the consensus guidance has this staying off the East Coast between Bermuda and the Carolinas. But it's a close enough curve that you've always got to watch this. And right now, Fiona not gaining strength, a lot of wind shear down there, and we'll keep an eye on it over the weekend. But I'll just tell you right now, have a great weekend. Don't worry about it this weekend. Start thinking about it Monday, and we'll have updates as we get into next week.